Welcome to the Retro Adventurers. This is a podcast about classic text adventure games that challenges some of our assumptions about those earliest text adventures. I am Jason Compton, joined this time around on the program by our repeat guest, honorary fifth member of the team, Tim Gilberts of Gilsoft. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode.
Thanks, Jason. Pleasure to be here and to do something that isn't just reading magazines, playing games.
Yeah, so we have a couple of some of the earliest games that we've covered on the program, both from the 70s. One is about as old as I am, actually. And before we get into those, Tim, you've been really busy in the popular world of the Spectrum Next 3 Kickstarter. Every time I glance at it, I see Tim Gilberts answering 80,000 questions and comments. So can you give us a little update on your involvement with the Next and what you've been doing lately?
Yeah, okay, no problem. Obviously, I not having to do as much as Phoebus is doing with organising the actual production of now the money's come in. For those who don't know, it's really surprised everyone on the team. We had a bit of a side bet going about how many we'd gain, and trust me, I lost dismally. So the closest was still nowhere near what we managed to raise, because we really thought it was a mop-up engineering job. But no, it's a massive interest with more backers than we've had, and a lot of money entrusted to get that wonderful machine out in both fairly good split, probably a third to 2/3 on the black and the magenta version. And obviously there's some changes to it. So it was really pleasing to see so many people still enthusiastic on the platform, and it's a self-sustaining platform now. To play fair, a lot of the people answering the questions are the community themselves now, which is what we'd hoped originally. Phoebus has done a really good job, and we've had a good go through the Kickstarter comments, because again, people engage in different ways. So in terms of what I'm doing for the Next, not a lot really, although I do write for Next magazine, and I run the Next Adventure Trail in there for those who are interested in playing adventures. The Next is a really good platform. It's got a lovely keyboard, and it's got no distractions, you can sit and play with no social media bleeping in while you're playing. And it's quite a pleasure to sit there with quite a nice resolution on display and an 80-column display. It's a pleasure. Someone's just literally released a massive collection, about 1,800 Z machine games for it, all collated up, ready to go in the built-in ZXZ VM interpreter. So there's loads. In fact, one of the games we play today, I'll talk about the fact in the end I ended up playing it on the Spectrum Next for a particular reason, which we'll explore as we go over it. So I was quite pleased to find one in there. So yeah, it's and I've been playing, just done a finished off review of Tristram Island, which was launched by Polyplay Games. So I had the big box version, and it was lovely. So I reviewed that for the Next magazine, and we've done a couple of others. So that's what I've been doing, playing a lot of adventure games. My adventure game notebook is starting to fill up. I'm going to have to get a new one soon, I think. So full of its multi-page maps. What I want to know, though, is why does it, no matter where you start on a page, it always ends up going off the end and little tiny boxes falling out, and it doesn't matter. I mean, you just cannot predict where a map's going to go, can you?
Yeah. Yeah. So our Ben Collier, founder Ben, has a Next. He's talked a little bit about that built-in Z machine interpreter.
Yep.
So that answered part of the question. But there's at least one of the newer platforms, development platforms that targets the Next directly. Am I remembering correctly? Adventuron targets.
You
Next
do,
directly?
yeah. Chris Ainsley's he's done a wonderful job with Adventuron. As for those who don't know it, Adventuron.io. It's a brilliant online. It targeted the education sector originally, but pretty much anyone can use it to write a really straightforward, lovely environment. And he's added an export to Dard option, which is the programming language we did for Aventuras AD in Spain. And obviously that's been released into the sort of public domain for people. And a guy, Uto Dev, has done some amazing development work into the modern platform, keeping up to date, new compilers, new everything, and you can target any retro machine pretty much with Dard. So from Adventuron through that chain, you stick a product called Dard Ready on, and it'll just make images for you for every retro machine. So you can pretty much produce it. And the point we'll make is, in a niche like Adventures Today played on retro machines, if you write your adventure that way, you can target not just the Next, but Apples and Commodores and pretty much anything TRS-80. So it's a good gives the modern equivalent with Puny Inform and Inform library. So with their ability to target multiple machines, a good run for them money, I think. So it's a great environment. If you've not explored Adventuron, I would thoroughly recommend you do it. In fact, we've had a couple of letters in for the Next magazine asking us to do it as a series on there. So it's definitely, and it's been used to publish some games. Sun Team did a few. One we reviewed recently, which is great. So Right the Druid was done that way, I think, and trying to think what the other one was. can't remember now. Played it recently. God, still going out of my mind. But we've done a few of those. That's quite a big one actually that we reviewed. That was in it. It was Golden Seas. That's it. There we go. Came out a couple of years ago, but done that way. Venture on, Dard ready, and then Next. But using the Next facilities with the lovely graphics. So some really beautiful layer 2 graphics. So which I do like. Graham was never a fan of graphics and adventures, but I do. Having written the Illustrator and added graphics to most things, I do see the value of them as a little illustration to get people in. But
all right, so Spectrum Next 3, the Kickstarter run is closed, but there's generally ways to get the machines. There's the sort of authorized clones that eventually come out. The earlier generations are available. So I put in for mine as well. I was part of that run up at the end on the machines. So yeah, hopefully we'll talk a little bit more about those in the future. And speaking of the future, there's a sense from kind of the glossy view of text adventure history that the main through line of the 70s into the early 80s, very heavy sword and sorcery, kind of Tolkien-esque influences. You've got, Colossal Cave Adventure, which, definitely plays into the realm of magic and dwarves with axes. Zork, very much the same thing, where it seems to start out in maybe a contemporary setting, but then takes you to a dungeon where there's magic and treasures. Obviously, saying the quiet part loud, The Hobbit, one of the most iconic games of the early 80s. So it'd be easy to think that, sci-fi was an also-ran. Sci-fi, with certain exceptions, Infocom's Planetfall, which was a big seller, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which of course was a huge, huge seller, things like Level 9's Snowball and things like that maybe sci-fi was an afterthought in early text adventures. But no. On this episode, we're going to take a look at a couple of games that were quite popular in their day and definitely have some good scholarship, but are not among the first that people think of when you talk about text adventures. And we're going to go to the first, our appetizer, right now. So our appetizer game for this episode is Dogstar Adventure by Lance Miklas. And Dogstar Adventure has the notable quality of being the very first type in adventure published in Softside Magazine in their May 1979 issue. So for a lot of people who were just getting into computers then, this might have been the very first type in adventure that they had a chance to play. Initially published for TRS-80 BASIC, it was published later and ported to a lot of different platforms. What did you end up playing it on?
Oh, that's awful complicated. I got a big long list here. I thought I'm going to have to play this on the TRS-80. So I dug my TRS-80 out, realized I didn't have enough to get it operational to do this, and it would be highly complex. I thought, I'll go for an emulation. That's okay. I'll find a TRS-80 emulator. So I've always meant to get main working. I'll get that working. Well, trust me, it was. I've spent more time on an adventure finding out how to emulate a TRS-80 than I have playing the game. And ultimately, in the end, I went and tried on quite a few things because there are quite a few directly on archive.org on the C64. You can play it. So quite of those. And here's an interesting one. It was actually done for the Coco. So I thought, great, I'll play it on that. That's a Dragony type one. I'll just fire up X-Raw. And I played for quite a while on X-Raw on the Dragon. And I did really well until my whole computer died. I've obviously found a memory leak error.
Oh, no.
Managed to fill all my log files with errors roaring out of the emulation. So that abandoned that one. And then, like I say, in the end, I found a Z5 conversion on the Spectrum Next and finished it that way.
Oh, okay.
I have to be honest. I did try to be original. I did.
So yeah, but the recent Z Machine port is one of the many ways to play it, and that's a very compact little implementation of it. But yeah, so Tim went on his own hero's journey to try to play the game. I guess now I feel a little bad. I took a much shorter route to victory. I did find the Commodore PET BASIC version, and because of the very strong similarities in the way BASIC is implemented, that actually runs just fine on the Commodore 64. So I played the 1980 PET BASIC version of it, but through a Commodore 64. And I was referring back to there's source code out there for the Zenith Z100 BASIC from 1984 that claims it's based on the original Softside text. That's very, very easy to read. So I was kind of following along with that and looking at some of the very minor differences between the PET version and what seems to be closer to the 1979 original.
Yeah.
So Dogstar Adventure, written by Lance Miklas, again, first published as a type-in, ported to a lot of different systems. 1979, this, of course, you're still in Star Wars mania, just the very first film is still capturing people's imaginations, and you are the only hope of saving Princess Leia and the Freedom Fighting Force. Depending on which version you're playing, Leia might have been changed into Leya. The pet version did restore a lot of the Star Wars intellectual property, but not all of it. Obviously, instead of the Death Star, we are dealing with the Dog Star, which is the base of operations for, depending on which version you're playing, Darth Vader, or what is it? Is it General Doom?
Doom, yeah.
Yes.
There's a BBC version as well, which I actually found. It was done in 2025 that drops all of that. The vague terms are gone, like Falcon is just spaceship.
Okay.
So they've chickened out completely for any kind of reference to Star Wars in the conversion. So.
Your ship, which may or may not be the Millennium Falcon, is disguised as a trading ship. You land on the Dogstar. You must rescue the princess, her necklace, and the treasury. If you fail to get the princess in the interest of peace, you must at least do everything you can to foil, again, Vader or Doom's plans. So this is a fairly straightforward two-word parser, verb noun. Ultimately, we are collecting up a bunch of things on the Dogstar and bringing them back to our cargo hold so that we can blast off and save the day. Had you played this before, Tim?
No, absolutely. Didn't even know anything about it. Completely new to me when you mailed me about it, and I thought, wow, that sounds fascinating. So, it was a great discovery. It really was. So, good find.
I admit, I've seen it discussed here and there, when the ports were coming out, but it never really worked its way into my consciousness as, oh, hey, this is showing that version of history, that things kind of go from Colossal Cave to Zork to Hobbit, and then finally you start to chip away in the sci-fi genre with things like Starcross and Planetfall and Snowball. That's not true. This was a huge game, not simply for being the first, but people were taking it, adapting it, porting it to every platform.
Exactly. So I wonder whether Planet of Death was influenced by the it's
I was noticing a lot of similarities. Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot to write that in my notes, but yes, a lot of the mechanics are very, 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 very similar. Right down to the random appearance of stormtroopers that you have to your next action has to be to shoot them.
Yeah.
Yes, that game clearly heavily influenced by Dogstar Adventure. I put up, if you follow us on social media, we try to stay active on both Facebook and Blue Sky. As a little teaser for this, I put up the book cover of a paperback novel called Envoy to the Dogstar from 1967. It's not clear. I haven't seen anything that directly connects that work. The Dogstar is, it's not the same plot. It's not like a Star Wars type plot. It's about a dog brain that's sent off to kind of another world. The author, Frederick L. Shaw, this is literally the only work that he's credited with anywhere, so it's probably an alias. Unclear. I thought that was a fun little tie-in.
I initially thought it was a Keith Laumer book, which I might be giving away a little bit for late, but I looked it up and it wasn't, so I was like, okay, then maybe I'd missed that one. So,
so I didn't look too closely at that Z Machine version. I'm looking now at the this Zenith version. Because we talk a lot about, you've got, maybe a machine that's got 32 columns, 40 columns in the case of the PET C64, and at least the version I played still is doing the old school double space after a full stop. It looks like they took it out of the Zenith version. What did they do on the Z Machine?
I don't know. I didn't notice.
Okay. Well, you had that gorgeous 80 column screen on the next, so it was easy to ignore.
It was lovely to read. Yeah.
Me on the 40 column PET, I'm just like, oh yeah, people were. They had it drilled into their heads by their English professors or whatever that wouldn't accept type work if it didn't have double space. But it does.
Still do it. I can't help it. I was taught to do it.
I did eventually break myself of it, but so it does on a 40 or a 32 column screen. It can fill up with white space pretty quickly. So this adventure, like I say, I found the map pretty easy to deal with. There's a little bit amazing in it. Not too terribly much.
The lab's a maze, isn't it, really?
Yes,
Yes.
one of the mazes just straight up says, "I'm lost," which
Yeah.
I thought was
The pipes. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
was a nice touch. How did you get along with the puzzles?
Looking at my notes here, I didn't do too bad actually. I can't say I got stuck, except very early on. My notes say the guards are really annoying and I don't know how to deal with them. And I just kept playing and playing again, redoing it to do the map rather than try and solve that puzzle of the random guards, and ended up. I mean, I learned not to go up round one area, and I learned to avoid their attention somehow. I was completely flawed. I couldn't find any way to kill him. I found the laser gun in the lab, but obviously that's not what you need, is it? So
Yeah, and that speaks to many of the things in the game are reasonably clued. There is a help function,
yeah,
which sometimes will just return, "How am I supposed to know what to do?" But in other times it'll give you a nudge about
yeah.
what you're supposed to do in a
The
room.
room is quite good. Yeah,
And so, yes, this speaks to the early puzzle that thwarted Tim. I happened to stumble into it right away, and I was like, "Okay, what is going on here?" And so I dug into it a little bit. So there's a room that's a supply depot, and it says, "Around me, I see all kinds of things." Now, we being trained, not even modern adventurers, just trained in the '80s tradition, you'd be like, "Okay, search room, examine supplies,
yeah.
examine shelves." None of these things do anything.
No,
If you type help, you get the answer, "How about a blaster?" You go like, "Well, yeah, how about a blaster?" So what Lance was expecting us to do was to say, "Okay, let's just try to take things that we think might be useful in the world." Now, he does give us the hint about the blaster.
yeah,
I'm gonna say that's fair enough.
yeah,
There's also a sequence where you're trying to, in the style of the Star Wars adventure, you need to get the secret attack plans off of the Death Star. You're told that there's a computer that will accept a tape.
yeah,
I can see it as reasonable to say, well, where am I going to find a tape? Let's ask the supply depot.
yeah,
The third object though that you're supposed to get is the one that I'm going to say is just completely unfair.
yeah.
So when you take the blaster, it's got 0 charges in it.
Mm.
You are supposed to think to ask to take ammunition in
Yeah.
that room. And that to me, that's a bridge too far. And it was unfortunate because we'd seen that he had ways to clue it that just didn't gel in this one. So that was a real guess what I'm thinking moment from the author,
Yeah.
which unfortunately definitely could have been avoided.
Yeah.
Once you dealt with the supply depot nastiness, was there anything else that kind of thwarted you in your quest?
No, I don't think so. I was reasonably happy to get through most of it. I didn't get all the way to the end before I started looking at someone else's code. Well, I started looking at the code because I got interested in how the code worked. Because one thing I did miss out of my long journey to play was actually, I thought after I'd had this crash in the Dragon and got quite a long way on that version, I did think, oh, it's fairly standard basic. I'll just convert it to next basic as a bit of an exercise.
Oh, okay.
But unfortunately, I was flawed instantly because it uses 2-letter variable names, which Spectrum Basic only has. It has 2-letter names, but they have to be a letter and a number. So I've had to convert and work out what everything did and substitute it everywhere. So I thought, oh, that's going to be too much work. So then I went to the Z5. But of course, in looking at that briefly, I did see some hints that gave me a clue on the other things to do.
Yeah.
And I did watch the last few seconds of it getting round solving the problem at the end with the pipes and getting into the jail and releasing there. I actually got that off of a walkthrough that was done on Jim Gary's. It was done by one of his playtesters. So you got a video, Miyagami got a video walking through it, and they cover that little bit, which I didn't get. So I didn't get all the way to the end. I'm very sorry. I was. I let myself be led at the very end, but most of it I really enjoyed. Once I got the blaster bit and the ammunition, which, as you say, that just floors you. But it's not much easier to play once you understand that one.
Yeah. Because the idea is that, yes, much like Planet of Death, these guards are going to show up randomly, and your next move has to be to shoot them.
Yeah.
I haven't dug into the code. When I encountered one, it always said, he appears, he shoots at you, he misses. Unlike Planet of Death, where sometimes they would just show up and kill you, which was very frustrating.
That did happen to me on at least one occasion, playing the original as close as I could. It definitely happened once on the Dragon version where I just turned up, killed me, I had no chance to fire back. So that can happen, I think, but maybe it's not a good job. I haven't looked at the code in detail.
Yeah, or maybe
it did happen to me. I thought that's unfair.
Yeah, maybe the pet port took it out because it was unfair, or maybe I just got lucky.
Yeah.
the sequence where you've got the tape and you need to copy the plans off, this was an area that's a little bit different depending on which version you're playing. The TRS-80 basic version, they invoke the TRS-80 basic command, so it kind of tells you, okay, you need to save to the tape. The PET version took out the reference to it being a TRS-80, but it was a little less clear what to do, so I had to do a little hunt the verb. I did eventually guess copy tape, and that worked.
Okay.
But that one, the porter didn't make it quite as clear. What threw me about that sequence is it says, okay, we copied the tape, and then it says, then it printed attack plans, very secret. And when I read that, I thought it meant, it printed them out on the CRT, on the monitor, it told us there.
Right.
But it actually printed a hard copy. So I kind of stumbled into having another look, literally at the room, and I saw, there's another item here. Okay, I'll take that. It's interesting seeing before a lot of the conventions of the genre are set in, there is an ID card, and it's an I.D. card. You can't take card, you have to take I.D., which of course, in the Z Machine world, you'd be thinking the period is separating commands, but no. Yeah. It's
older.
Yeah. The TRS-80 original is get instead of take, but the PET version is take instead of get. So that must have just been a little, this is my flourish that I'm putting on this. Ben Collier alert. There is a toilet, but I made many valiant attempts. I did not find any way to use it as such. Okay. Ben Collier alert number 2. When you do encounter Princess Leia, you cannot kiss her or otherwise inconvenience her. You just have to take her. She's just an inventory item. And,
object.
And just
absolute object.
Yeah, just plunk her down in the cargo hold. There's also graffiti that contains a password, and that's a little bit different in the PET version than in the TRS-80 original. So
big nose. I didn't get the big nose. I'm sorry.
That's supposed to be a Kilroy was here. So the sketch with the hanging over.
Okay, because that's the next one is Kilroy, isn't it? Big nose. Okay, it's the sketch. Yes, I get it now. Yeah, looking over. Yeah, thank you.
So did your version, was it keeping score? Mine gave me a score at the end, but it wasn't actually clear that I was earning points along the way.
Yeah, because it says your score has gone up by whatever it is.
Oh, okay. So the Z Machine version was doing that level of convenience. Yeah. I just saw ended with 225 out of 225 points. I'm like, yay. Yeah. So your overall kind of thoughts on your trip through the Dog Star adventure?
I really enjoyed it, actually. It was good, and it was nice to get inside the actual engineering a little bit afterwards to have a look at the basic and how it was put together, and the fact, it was a cover magazine. That's quite important, really, isn't it? It was the front cover of Softside. They put it in later, so with that, it looks like everyone assumes it's the cover of the box it came in, but it's not. It's actually the magazine cover with that sort of spaceship and and I did wonder whether the funny routing on some of the map was because it was supposed to be a circular space station.
Oh,
so I did wonder whether I should redraw it a bit with curves, and it might make a bit more sense.
Yeah,
because they do seem to swerve around, especially around the bathroom and up to the lounge, and I did wonder whether they were looking at a circular thing there. So the hamburger was a bit strange though. So.
Robots love hamburgers. I mean, everybody knows that.
Yeah, I suppose so. But it was good. I thought it was well put together. Nice game. I'd have probably enjoyed it a lot back in the day. I really would have. Except for that blaster and the guards.
Yeah. The random event. That was definitely a drag. You get 10 shots from the ammunition, so I was finding myself conserving them towards the end.
Yeah.
Generally understood that people out there, saw how Dogstar was coded up and like, we can adapt that to our own adventures. So I guess you see a lot that follow this, that if they weren't adapting the Scott Adams system that he eventually published, in Byte magazine, they were very often leveraging what Lance Miklas set forth in Dogstar Adventure. PET basic version was a little on the slow side, but it was playable. Obviously, the Z Machine version is going to clip along on pretty much anything.
The Coco was pretty quick, to be honest.
Good.
It was fine. It was really quite quick.
Yeah. Apart from my issues with the supply room, which are definitely the biggest negative of this game, knowing what you're going to be coping with going in there, is it more than a historical artifact but less than a great game? I think that's a fair assessment of it. But definitely, if you have not had a chance to look at it, I would recommend it.
I would, but if anyone's going to convert it to next basic, your other big problem is they use a lot of lines above 10,000. Of course, the classic Sinclair Basic ends at 9999. So you've got to renumber all the lines at the top as well. So, and don't try and type it in using MAME's paste, because it can't quite cope with the processing the lines well enough to get lots of errors. Because that was my original way of getting into the Coco, because I couldn't find a CAS of it to load in. So I thought, I'll paste it all in as a piece of base. That's how I ended up studying the code quite a lot. So I watched it, type it in, took it about half an hour and made a lot of mistakes. And then I thought, I can't be clean this up. Let's go hunting for another version. But I stand by people. You should try and play it on the original hardware.
All right. Well, Next Hackers, Tim Gilberts has laid down the gauntlet. Please do let us know if you take it up and give us a next native port of Dogstar Adventure. But however you end up playing it, even if you just take the short route to victory and play the Z Machine version, definitely worth taking a look.
Yeah.
And for our main course this episode, we are looking at Aldebaran III. This is a game from the Wander system by Peter Langston. It's credited as originally being published around 1977 to 78. The source code that's floating around now is dated 1982. And Peter Langston and the Wander system are this mind-blowing branch of early text adventures that, frankly, most people don't really know about, and they should. The good news is there is a lot of good scholarship now. Peter Langston has answered some questions. Jason Dyer's Renga and Blue has a lot of really good information on the system, information from Peter. But this is mind-blowing stuff because, again, we've all kind of been trained to think in terms of, Colossal Cave to Colossal Cave with puzzles and quests, to the MIT guys, coming up with Dungeon, which they then commercialize as Zork and blah, blah, blah down the line. No. Peter Langston in 1974 had a game that we would recognize as a text adventure called Castle, written in a system that he called Wander, that was this, extensible language, reasonably human readable, to create these adventure games.
That was the one in HP Basic, wasn't it? HP Basic first.
Yes, I do believe so.
Yeah.
And so Castle was the first one. Again, 1974, which is around the time that, early Colossal Cave, mainframe is being cooked up. No. Peter Langston is off on his own, doing this work in parallel. This is the second game that survives on that platform, Aldebaran III, set in, or I should say, written initially 1977 to 78. And Tim, you tipped the hand a little bit. You want to talk a little bit about how this is an unlicensed derived work from an existing sci-fi world?
Yeah, of course, if you want. It comes from a series of stories. Yeah, I gave us a little hint earlier tonight and the appetizer. Sorry about that for the main course. But yeah, Keith Laumer, who was a writer, which I didn't read. I was a massive consumer of science fiction stories, but obviously Barry Library never carried any of his books. But I did correct that for playing this game. I did at least get one of his books and read the first story or two in the series. But they're based on a set of stories about the adventures of the Corps Diplomatique and Jamie Retief, I think, is the way it's done.
Yep.
So the first book that sort of featured him, I think, was Envoy to New Worlds, which is a set of short stories around this sort of swashbuckling type character who's off to sort out. He's a very junior member of the Corps who upstages his bosses all the time by creating and understanding what the aliens are doing, and his boss is completely oblivious to it, and is the usual terrible not listening to the underlings and getting all completely huffed about it all, but has some interesting views about women, maybe that we might not consider appropriate these days in some of the stories. So but yeah, that's where it came from, I believe, when it was completely unlicensed. And I think, as you've said, this was done when he converted it to System 5 at Harvard. I'm sure he did it then. I think this must have been what he wrote, because he said he added documentation and a copyright notice about 78. So I'm fairly certain this was where that was done, because it is the default game in the source file under C. So I think that's probably the moment it all got, and it's part of the documentation. If you read the Wander system documentation, the examples are all from this. Hopefully, is that pretty much what you thought, Jason?
Yeah, my understanding. I did not track down one of the Laumer books to read it, but I have read about it that they're entertaining, pulpy sci-fi novels. But if you have any experience in the diplomatic service, they kill. That he's kind of capturing the world of
zeitgeist of what you're going to be with if you were an ambassador. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, he did serve. He was he was a US diplomat and a US Air Force officer, I think. So, and he wrote another couple of the series with the Bolo stories and that. But he just basically rails against red tape, doesn't he? So, but he did do quite a bit in the United States Foreign Service. So he was writing from experience, which I think is where the strength of the book, the story came from. So.
Yeah, and those novels span from publication in the early 1960s through the early 90s, and I found evidence of at least one licensed work by another author in the 21st century. Several of those stories are now public domain. This obviously, when Langston was writing this game, there was no money at all in any of this. We're talking about things running on mini computers and mainframes and things like that. But just the fact alone that here's a game that is from a separate branch. This is not the Colossal Cave begets Dungeon, begets Orc, begets the Hobbit kind of track we usually think of. This is separate work. Langston has different collaborators. There's a Nat Howard who wrote a game called Library that is kind of crystallized around the same time. There's a Lou Katz that is credited with a game that seems to be lost to time. That the way the quote here, I think from Langston on Jason Dyer's blog is, quote, a department store world trying to make a computer game that would appeal to girls, end quote. So again, we've got this extensible parser-based adventure game system, and I'm definitely going to want to talk about some of the limits and, okay, maybe this isn't quite as flexible as what's going to come down the line. But when you sit down at it, I really wasn't sure what I was going to get. And in fact, you get something that you can go, east, west, up, down, to, get your inventory, all those things that feel very familiar. Now, the source code that we have, like I say, is from the early 1980s. So it is possible that some of these conveniences were being added based on what he was seeing, in that parallel development coming out. I don't think, I think the snapshot that everybody found of this was, from 1980 and beyond. And to Tim's point about System 5, there are some Unix and Unix user group jokes in here that play out over the course of the adventure. I am going to say what leapt out at me about this game, and again keeping in mind that it was being played initially in the mid 70s, is there's a lot of text. I feel like we think of, well, you go through your Colossal Cave and it's fairly terse, descriptions, and then you get to Dungeon and you get to Zork, and then once you start to get those Infocom games, that's when you get, more lavish descriptions. But this game has a lot of text. Just to, in the opening, there's a lot of world background on Aldebaran III and, who lives there and how the society works. And that struck me right off. This is not... we're not in Scott Adams land where we're fitting things into 16K of memory. We're not in the terse Colossal Cave world. We're in a world with stuff to say. Tim, what struck you about that?
Exactly, and it was very much an Infocom game. That's his inspiration, not Colossal Cave. I'm sure. It was definitely and I suppose the thinking is when you're on a machine that's got that sort of capacity, you're just not going to be worried about it, are you? You're just going to keep, and when he obviously planned to put lots more in it, he got number 108, 120, 130 room to things that are just titled with no descriptions that were never built out. But there was obviously plans to make this a very big game.
Yeah.
So but the text is brilliant, and obviously once you realise you can keep reading the notes, it just goes on and on and on. Even it says you get bored. If you keep reading, you can keep reading quite a lot, and it's quite useful as well to understand what's going on in the game, isn't it?
Yeah, and right. Then that was an interesting where he's already kind of teasing the audience a little bit, and in that you're told who you are and you're given that point of view right away. Yeah, you read the first page of notes and it's like you're getting kind of bored. Which at first I was like, okay, I'll just move on. But then I'm like, well, what if I do try to read some more? And you can just read page after page, and eventually it will loop and stuff. But yeah, there's a lot to say. And your point about, if you're writing for these mainframes, you do have more of that room. And we've talked about that a little bit with Topologica games, where I think they're kind of, They used the higher ceiling to, yes, create more rooms, create more puzzles, but they didn't necessarily go in for a lot of descriptive text. And those are games that expressly don't have any sort of concept of examine. We didn't talk about for Dog Star Adventure, but you'll be unsurprised to learn there's really not much in the way that you can examine or read or manipulate. Nope. This game has more of that. It's not consistent, and some of that is down to the structure of the games. So it seems like there's the Wander engine. And in the Wander engine, you kind of define these handful of master verbs that are meant to work anywhere. And it was actually an interesting list looking through that for this game, because you can see what's a synonym for what. It's like, for example, and here's we can talk about how this reflects on video games. Even back then, there are 5 different ways to express the idea of attack. There's attack, hit, beat, kick, and kill, and all of those are synonyms. And that's the most synonyms for any verb. And nominally, that works or is recognized in any room. Yeah. I like.
There's no get. There's no get.
There's
no
only
get.
Yep. It's a take only. But I put in bold this because I found it interesting that the synonym list, there's steal, borrow, and purloin. Ooh, so borrow is a synonym for steal. That's an interesting take. Yes, 5 different ways to say attack, but things like read are room and item specific. A lot of things in this game are specific to a place or to an object, and they only will trigger on that.
You can put a ... in it to ask it to continue processing into the MISC file as well. So you can actually ask, the parser could support more generic responses if there's no specifics as well.
Oh, okay.
I don't think he did a lot of it in there. Once I played it, I did start digging down into how Wander works, because I thought I'm really fascinated with this, obviously with the background I got with adventure systems.
Yeah.
And underlying it at the very bottom, it's awful close to the sort of verb noun action condition type series. It's very similar. So it's I wonder whether there must have been influence for Scott Adams in this. I wonder if he saw it. We ought to ask him, really.
I mean, we should ask him, but we can ask you, you being one of the early vendors of game development systems, did you have any idea that Wander was a thing?
No, none. But I do wonder whether whether Ken Reed, who wrote the article in the Practical Computing with the 1980 article, whether he'd heard of it or seen it, only because of the sort of conduct and the approach he took. And the tables are very similar to the processing. I just wonder whether there's some reference, although I think that might have been fairly unique to him. But you never know. Or maybe it's just the way to do it.
Interesting. Well, so for Aldebaran III, you are traveling as first undersecretary to the ambassador for the Corps Diplomatique Terrestrien, CDT. Your direct supervisor, Mr. Magnan, has managed to duck out of the action, leave you as sole assistant to his superior, Ambassador Pounce Trifle. The ambassador is a classic bungler and would, if left on his own, mess things up badly. You have been sent to Aldebaran III, where you are to avert an uprising against Terran nationals expected at the end of April. That's important, even though they talk a lot about calendars and the period of the planet and so forth. We're still using the Earthbound calendar. During your trip, you were able to peruse the ship's meager library and make a few notes on the history, life forms, and society of Aldebaran III, but much of Aldebaran culture is still a mystery. It is the middle of the night. The ship on which you arrived has just departed from the small spaceport, which you find to be windy and deserted. So yeah, we're dropped into a world where we're told who we are. There's some amount of peril. There's going to be more that we learn about down the line before we really get the quest to collect literally the X, Y, and Z foozles that we need in order to win the game. But maybe in keeping with the being stranded in the world of bureaucracy, apart from the landing zone where there's a vending machine, our next real puzzle to interact with is a customs official. It's not, well, actually, maybe it is the first game to put you in that sense of like, what are you even going to take on this adventure? That became a trope. Like, well, what are you going to equip yourself with? Well, I don't know. I haven't played the game yet. I don't know what I need. You have a limited number of credits on this credit card. You don't really know what you need and when you need it from that vending machine. And then when you do, you have to pay again to get it out of the building. How did you find the world vibe, just kind of going through those first few rooms before you even, make it onto the planet proper?
I thought it was a nice little setup to get used to the game.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you struggle instantly with not being able to do I for inventory, and you want to see what you're carrying, what you got. But
Yeah, you have to type it out long form.
yeah, long form, which can be tiny. And again, we become so used to these norms that we just going back is a real struggle. But I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was quite funny with the vending machine, especially its mystery items one is quite funny. I thought, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't put enough. I didn't want to waste too much money, so didn't actually find its secret behind the mystery the
Mm.
first time round. So it took a while before I could work out how to do things. But yeah, no, it was great, and it wasn't too unobvious about what was happening. The officials comes over as a real character as well, like the way he started scratching and Terrium. You really got that feeling of somebody sat there at this bored late night spaceport. It felt like walking through an airport that you do when you're the last person coming through and there's nobody there except one bored looking customs off. It really did set the scene. Like you say, the text is really quite well written, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it sets the scene lovely. So did find it a bit funny having to pick the card up after you've shown it, declared it to him though. Why it's
Mm-hmm.
dropped in the next location and not. That did seem. I couldn't work out why that was happening. I think it's just to do this blowing the card across out your way. So maybe it was just to be able to do that. So
Yeah. I forgot to ask at the outset how you ended up playing this game, and I'm glad you found it because I remember you'd asked me like, where did we get this, and I didn't answer you right away, and you're like, never mind, I figured it out. When I eventually sat down to play, I eventually had to grab a version that's stored on the Internet Archive because a lot of the linked sources, there is source code out there, but it starts getting into very quickly. All you need to do is go in and change this, and
Right.
like this is not the Makefile experience I am accustomed to.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I thought, well, it's in C. I'll make it work on my Linux box. So
Okay.
yeah. Okay. For anyone who tries this, the source code that's out there nearly works. It's linked off of. I mean, we can probably put it in the show notes from, can we?
Yeah.
But it does work. It's supposed it's listed as Mac, but it's actually just the Unix source because of course Mac is just Unix underneath now.
Yep.
So it's the GitHub shmup Swander image. The other thing is, if you want to build it, there was a change in GCC version 10 that went back for turning no common in default behavior. So you have to do you need to basically, if you're using a later version, you've got to do a -f no dash common. Is the default, so you just got to do a -f common in the C flags changing. So you build it and allow these common pointer zones. That will basically allow you to build it and a playable game. But as I found out, having done quite a lot of the play, the saves, the apparently saving works fine. Don't try and reload them; it's seg faults, and I haven't quite found the bug yet. There's a lot of pointers to moving stuff and saving stuff around. So why that's doing it, I don't know. But I'll probably fix it because it's annoying me now, and I'd like to play with it a bit more. So I want to be able to save the games though to play them because having to do it just by completely starting again is it's not too big a game that you can't start again, but it can be a bit frustrating. So oh, and I use Cool Retro Terminal as well, for those who don't know it.
Okay.
CRT.
Yeah.
So I had the big glowing green screen. I wanted to play on the Unix System 5 type effect. So I did it that way. So
Okay. No, I got panicky because I couldn't get it to compile because I don't know what I'm doing. But I did eventually find on Internet Archive a Win32 executable of it that did still work. So
cool.
that was my way of playing it. It's just in
Did save and load work?
Save worked. I think I did successfully load, yeah, but now I'm doubting myself. You're told that we're in a world that commands of 1 to 5 words work. It's a little less sophisticated in that generally the things that are compound commands they're custom to that particular room or that particular task. Certain things are clued, like we're told about verbs like take, inventory, drop, look, read. What we're not told about are concepts like ask for help, which you can do for the bartender that you first encounter. And once you get him to warm up to you, he will help you out. He's also one of the early examples of there being multiple ways to address puzzles in this game. You can buy this translation dictionary from the vending machine, and then you have to pay customs on it, or you can bribe him. And I will say that in a world that's, where you're a diplomat and you're doing, kind of espionage-y things, that bribe isn't an unreasonable verb to ask people to come up with on their own. The examine verb seemed to be a synonym for read, and that read was the default. So like if you try to examine something that doesn't have any sort of description, it'll say like read what? And I'm like, okay, well that's a hint of what we may or may not be getting some info on. There for as like Tim was saying, there is a GitHub now that has the code for Wander, as well as the 3 sort of finished existing worlds, plus a math tutorial. So there's Castle, there's Aldebaran III, there's the math tutorial, and there's Library. What there's not, oddly, I was not able to find any public maps out there, nor any walkthroughs. There's
nothing.
Ring Gun Blue has a gameplay that will give you some hints. There's another one as well that we'll link to. I believe it's from the CRPG Adventures blog.
Yeah.
So there's info.
I needed him because I struck a problem at the end of the game.
Yeah. So the puzzles in the game range from straightforward, okay, I need a thing to deal with a thing, to wait a minute, what verb do I need to guess here? What special incantation do I need to cook up here? In a way that reminded me of the experience of playing some of the Trillium/Tellurium games that also are based on novels, and this is something that Jason Dyer remarks on, that this guy was doing things with narrative and text adventures that nobody else was trying at the time, but it's easy to see where he kind of bumped up against the edges of sometimes it's tough to know what that incantation is unless you're literally following the template of the book. There's also a hard inventory limit of 6 items. That gets annoying real fast because you want that dictionary glued to your hand. You want the credit card. You never know when you might need your papers, because those do come in handy a few different times. It quickly became an item stowing challenge.
Keys. You got to carry the keys around.
The keys, right? Because you never know, like when are we gonna need that? So I quickly found myself frustrated with the object manipulation stuff for that.
Did you carry the bottle around for ages till you worked out what useful?
Yep, because I was like, I probably don't need this. And then I glanced at one of those guides. I'm like, oh, I am going to need this. All right.
Yeah. Did you look at the label on it? That's quite well done.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah. And yes, there's translated text. And what I found interesting, and like maybe it was because just it's a mainframe, we've got space, rather than doing a thing where the letters are shifted in a programmatic way. There's literally just like there's the garbled version, and then there's the real version stored. In a what I'm guessing was sort of an early creepypasta kind of thing. There's this weird scrawl that you encounter, and if you try to translate it with the dictionary, it says the dictionary gets like red hot and you drop it. Was there a payoff to that beyond just?
I didn't see that.
Okay,
didn't see that bit. So where was that?
That was down by the token vending machine.
Oh right, yeah, in the.
Yeah, it's like this weird ASCII scrawl. It's like
Jux Pepper Gametti, whatever. That's the vending machine. You buy your tokens here.
Yeah, but there was a sign by it that had this weird scrawl.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay. I didn't see that.
I don't think it's essential.
Okay. Cool.
So how did you deal with with that 6 item limit? And there is no bag of holding in the offing.
No, nothing. That isn't. Pretty much because I couldn't save and restore, I was replaying the game, so I'd learned what things were useful and weren't. So as I went through, I skimmed it down to the bare minimum, and eventually, I that's probably how I missed it. I stopped carrying the dictionary because I'd already translated round everything I'd found. So when I did my final run through to try and get all the way to the end, I'd pretty much not bothered with that. So all I needed was those extra couple of things. Because, of course, a key part of this is the tokens, isn't it? The strange coins, as they're described. You buy the 2 in the at the start because you need enough to get in through the gateway. We're going to talk about the subway system. So it takes you from the various areas. Yeah,
there's this transit system, and I'm getting sort of flashback shades of Robots of Dawn that provided multiple ways to get around the world, including this subwalk system. Yes, there's different ways to get tokens, and you can end up paying different prices for them.
Yep. The vending machine's the cheapest way of getting them.
Yeah.
Yep.
And money can be earned by by playing a version of Go, which again is hard coded. It's not simulating Go in there, or recognizing that he's been making a lot of Monopoly puns, and then the verb pass will get you. And that was something that
I missed that completely. Absolutely, completely missed that.
No, and that was. But
I did get the Go game straight off the bat. I played it through first time, got the money, got Atari straight off. I was quite impressed with myself.
There you go.
I was really impressed. So I was thinking, I'll play that again, but then I realised it's probably not it. But I was just luck really, but maybe I looked at it and saw it the right way. But I really genuinely got it. So I didn't really then explore much more around there once I got the money. I didn't get the bit about how to get out of jail either. So because obviously once you get the Monopoly reference, you understand to get out of jail free. And
again, shades of what was to come from Topologica. There's that left-right maze, which is very much out of I think Avon had, or maybe it was Murdoch. I don't remember. One of those two had a quote-unquote maze where you're just going like northeast or northwest, and if you get it wrong, you have to backtrack and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, it just says like, well, you don't have a sense of direction here, but you do have a sense of left and right. And he does hint that essentially you go right when the location name starts with a vowel. And all of the location names are these alliterative things. So I did laugh aloud when it was, yes, it's a terbium yard.
Yeah.
Which of course starts with a Y, as we all know, those of us who have looked at the periodic table for these jokes, as we probably have been doing if we're in college playing this game on our mainframe.
Yeah, well, it would have been one on the wall to look at in the science lab, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And another thing that I needed help with was that eventually, I think as part of that left-right maze, you are told...
That's when I left my notes, by the way. I decided to drop my notes at that yard so I could get the... because I couldn't pick anything else up there. That's why I thought,
I had the exact same problem. I'm like, I probably won't need these later.
Yeah. But I thought, I know how to get back now because I'd mapped the maze. I've got a little map of it completely. So I'm quite pleased with my little map of the maze. So...
But you're told you're given kind of the keyword sometimes, which ends up then being useful for getting around.
It does.
There's the tourist information machine. That's a good place to either save the game or dig through the source code a bit and get some world lore without having to permanently pay for it.
Did you get the map straight away from the bartender as well?
I did, yeah.
Yeah,
Once I realized that I needed to interact with him more.
Yeah, because you need that password, a lot later. And I think the clues are good enough because it was hard to work out what was going on at that point. But once you realised that was the password, it was like oh wow moment.
More Ben Collier targeted content. The game does have toilet, or rather elimination mechanics that come in handy in a place called Cleanliness Way, and this was a puzzle that I needed help with. But basically it's suggested that there are these cleaner robots that are making sure that everything needs to be kept clean. So you can either, and this is not an object that is mentioned, but if you just say, okay, I'll drop some dirt, drop dirt, then it'll toggle the robot to appear, or you can use an elimination verb, and that also will work. So Ben Collier Mechanic 2, you do eventually encounter a lady who is described as fetching enough that you might want to throw a smooch her way. And the response is, that hardly seems appropriate. Who do you think you are anyway? James Bond? So you got that going. Again, in this diplomatic espionage world. And it's around that time. By the way, she's in the house of worship, so shame on you if you're making that a smooching place.
And she isn't what she seems.
Yes. But it's around that time that we kind of get the final core mission of the game, which is there's the rep, kind of there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek stuff about the impractical politics of this world, and the chief executive is the rep, and the rep has lost a pale Ziller with an X, an alabaster Yangst, and a green Zwerf, and so it becomes our mission to collect those 3 up, and then deal with a puzzle in which no 2 of them can be, left alone in the same room at the same time. I was unclear, once I had the shovel, so I knew there was going to be some digging, and then there's the graveyard. But how did we know? How are we meant to know that we would find those things in the graveyard? It says in an isolated area near Pont Saint Michel, just because we would think of a graveyard as being isolated, or did I miss another clue there?
I think only because it's adjacent, because it's described as the east end of Pont Saint Michel.
Okay.
So, and it's the first dirt you were ground, isn't it? It just seemed obvious to me. I had a shovel and I should dig in the graveyard.
Okay.
But maybe that's because I'd done the left-right puzzle first, and I had the shovel, and there must be a reason to have a shovel that well hidden. So, digging up graves seems a good way to hide goods. So, I don't think that was too badly signposted. So, did you manage to trigger the visitor from the crypt? I never had enough money to trigger it.
So, and this was about the place where I was running out of. I'm having a difficult time grinding through the game. So, I started to rely more on the source and less on my gameplay at this point.
Okay,
So.
I gave up mapping the graveyard. I really did. I was like, I worked out just enough to be able to get to the crypt and narrow the crypt back in, and I tried using because I don't know if you've worked it out, but it's basically you get the first objects randomly at the first location you turn up at.
Oh, okay.
So it's designed to give you, if you dig in the first place you go in, you'll get something fairly quickly. But I struggled then to try and map that maze, even with the odd objects lying around. It was and I was thinking, this is just too weird, because they all loop back on themselves. You can't leave enough objects, because you can't take enough across the bridge to be able to do a proper maze map when you've got 3 or 4 locations interlinking. So I did give up a little bit. I had another go, a second go at mapping it, but I could navigate around it quick and zoom back and forth just to try and solve it. But I couldn't do it. But I only found out there was a visitor in the crypt that you could release. I mean, I'd opened the coffin, but nothing happened. But I only found that out from the source later on when I started digging in and said, right, I've had enough now. So I never actually took the objects back to the where did he should go? No, to the rep. I never actually dropped them back there because I could never get the last one. I could never find it by digging. I don't know why. I just couldn't find it in the maze, maybe. And again, it's always a 50-50 chance whether you find the object on a dig, it turns out. So I really dug into how the maze, if you excuse the pun, I dug into how the maze works because I wanted to know where the randomness was coming from. And that made me think, oh, this must be random, which made me look at the way the code works and how he does the randomness. So just don't give up. It is random, but you will find stuff. But you've got to have a lot more dedication to mapping that maze than I had. I think I'd lost it by then.
Okay. And yes, we have to use daylight to defeat the visitor from the crypt because there is a day-night cycle. The idea being that the game is meant to end after we're out of April. I believe it was the CRP Adventures blog that said actually April will continue indefinitely, which was an interesting concept.
No endpoint ever put in, by the sounds of it, probably.
Yeah, which is interesting because he probably refined certain other things as it went along, and so it sounds like neither of us finished it legitimately, but I did take a look at the ending message, and it's a little underwhelming given the big bang of text that the game starts with. Not a whole heck of a lot of fanfare when you do deliver the 3 foozles at the end. And
he's a bit miserable, the rat, though, when you go and speak to him. So
and that may be part of the world flavor.
I think it is.
It's on to the next.
And of course, I did. I was quite pleased to discover when I did bother reading the book that the Terry is a term that is used in the book. So that is comes from the book. So the nickname for us damn humans is Terrys.
Yes, there's some anti-Terry demonstrations and things like that we get wrapped in, and the I think it's the mentioned boss who ends up crushed to death.
If you hang around too much, you get taken away, don't you, as well? So it's
But that said, I did notice in this game, and honestly, even Dogstar Adventure, I mean, yes, there was the random guard appearance is a major exception, but these were not games with tons and tons of ways to die.
No.
There weren't like, oh, you've walked in the wrong place and now you're dead, or
Yeah.
lots of, you don't have this object, so you're dead. There were
I
definitely
got stuck in the jail with no money to bribe my way out. So I was like, well,
you could get stuck, you could get into unwinnable situations, but not so much now you're dead. And yeah, you're like, there's the argument that walking death is worse than saying you're dead, game over. But at least you're not contending with that frustration. You can still explore and learn. And
well, even with Walking Dead, you can carry on exploring areas, and you realize you've backed yourself in. Again, once you know the game, it's not too bad to move back through it fairly rapidly to get to any position, because the transit system takes you to any area like pretty quick. So yeah, it's good. But definitely unfinished, I think. I think there was he planned to do more with before it was,
Yeah, and that based on the fact that there are literally rooms that have names but nothing else sitting around in the source code.
But that's a nice aspect of the way the system works, is with built-in short and long descriptions as well. So you can nip around quickly. It switches from short to long descriptions. That was great. The only thing I found really disconcerting was there's no prompt. So you didn't know how to type anything in.
Yeah, that's a good point. I forgot about that. Yeah, where there's no greater than symbol or anything else sitting there. Just the cursor. You have to kind of know to start typing. So, I'm very intrigued by this. I was shocked that I didn't know anything about this pioneering, certainly in many cases, dense text game. Yeah. Your takeaways on Aldebaran III, the unlicensed Retief sci-fi adventure?
I really liked it. I was really quite enthusiastic playing it. Once I got the game running, well, that was my biggest advice. Oh, wow, I've got the game running, and that was fun. But then as soon as I started playing, I was really enjoying the game as well. So I think even today it stands up as quite a good game to play. There's not much in it you couldn't play now, and in fact, I think with a couple of tweaks to add getting as an alternate, a knife and inventory, and a few bits and pieces and make the save and load, I think it could be it could be a playable game today. There's nothing terrible in it. It's quite entertaining for people, and the storyline's quite good. And even with a couple of quite a lot of spoilers we've given away, I don't think there is. But just make sure you fix the source code, because you cannot solve it. You can't open the gate to the graveyard. That's not possible to do because there's an error, which again I had to find off of the blog that it's the keys.
The key versus keys, yes.
And he's right. It's single. There's a singular term, key, and I think it's just a typo. The S is missing, and therefore, because there is no single key in the game, there's only multi keys, and you'll never be able to unlock the gate without it. So it's obviously an error in that version of the source code. Yeah. So I was really stuck, and I got a feeling as well that you talk about the can't carry much across the bridge problem.
Yeah,
I think that was there is an element of it that was one of the tests he did within the source code. I think because there's an example he gives in the training in the manuals. So if you read the manuals for Wander, you'll actually know a little bit about that sort of side of it as well. So and because the keys is the real one. And what was it about it does a very. Yeah, there's a patch basically. You just need three places where you put key and keys as a synonym and add this on the end of the unlock actions. Okay. So make sure you fix that before you play that version. So, yeah, but no, I think great. I really, really enjoyed it. It occupies, I'm trying to look now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it's about 6, 7 odd pages in my notebook, of lots of little scribbles and attempts to do it, and lots of little things. Oh, is that a bug? Is that right? Getting your stuff stolen is really annoying. Yeah, because you lose your tokens, and I didn't know how to solve that afterwards. That's why I didn't get to give him back. But that is revealed, and we won't give that one away. But it is quite obvious afterwards, really, if you've learned the earlier one of cleaning yourself. Yeah. So it's good. It was really good. I really, really enjoyed playing this one.
Yeah, so we will link to the articles about the Wander system and Aldebaran III. I'm heartened by the amount of work that's been done to document them. I'm a little surprised, like we've been talking about, that there haven't been any real attempts to clean it up or port it to something modern. Easy says me, because the Wander system is pretty clearly documented. The the world code for these are pretty clear. I would think it would be not the toughest lift to bring it over to something like Inform or Dialogue or something like that. But yeah, a really interesting piece of history. Books like Hackers by Stephen Levy kind of set up the expectation that in the early days of university computing, there were the sci-fi nerds and the Tolkien fantasy nerds, and kind of the latter, quote unquote, won in terms of what the kind of the dominant narrative form of games were going to be in the late 70s and into the 80s. But it's not strictly true. And Aldebaran III, a really interesting journey into a world that even if you consider yourself a fairly serious text adventure enthusiast, you might not have run into. Tim, any final thoughts on this game, or have you taken a look at the other Wander games since starting to play this one?
I haven't. No, I haven't had time to play the others, but I probably will now, because obviously it's I might even have a crack at putting some of the game into it. Or maybe even finish this off, because it's just crying out for a couple of cleanups, isn't it? Really. Yeah. So it really is a fascinating system and really quite powerful. There's a lot you can do with the way the parsers set out. That it's really well done. And I think that's really Aldebaran III. He must have in the source. There's there's a couple of magic words you can try: abracadabra, sesame, and X Y Z Z Y. So he obviously had seen the influences from adventure. Yeah. So but like you say, that was probably because it was by 78. It would have been doing the rounds, wouldn't it? And he'd look to something immediately because, oh wow, look, here's something I've been. But previously this long predates it, and it pretty much sets everything up, and is I would say is 7-8 years ahead of its game, isn't it? At least 10, possibly.
Yeah, quite clever. And as you'd expect from a 70s sci-fi fan, there are some references to Star Trek and things like that built into the game. So interesting journey. And certainly if Tim or anybody else out there modernizes and cleans up a few of the bugs, the GitHub, I think for the section in the README about bugs, I think it just says, hold on, let me find it directly. Let's see. Yeah, for bugs, it says ho ho ho. In other words, it's probably full of bugs. Yeah. But the sources out there, the means are there. Tim, thanks for coming into space on this dangerous journey through many light years and hard vacuum. But appreciated having you on this episode with us.
It's been fun. Thanks, Jason. I really I love the opportunity to explore something back to that sort of time. It was really good. So all right. We move forward though.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Forward into the past of the future. For Tim, I've been Jason. Thanks for joining us on another episode of The Retro Adventurers.
Bye.
You've been listening to The Retro Adventurers, a podcast about classic text adventure games. This episode was produced and edited by Jason Compton. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, including Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Podcast Addict. Visit us at retroadventurers.com and follow us on Facebook and Blue Sky. The Retro Adventurers is based on a format originally devised by Ben Collier, Jason Compton, and Dave Hawkins.